Hello and welcome to Cricket Kadaigal. Kadaigal means stories in Tamil, and I'm going to talk about a little story here about where I think Suryakumar Yadav should be used in case he is in our World Cup squad, or does he even warrant a place? That's what we're all set to find out.
Oh, he's got him! Fast ball, has he got? Yes, he's got him!
So, as we try to unravel where will Suryakumar Yadav play, I must tell you that he doesn't feature in my first 11, and there's a reason for that. My first 11 has Rohit, Gill, Virat, and KL Rahul. I think these four are locked. Number 5 is a contentious spot. Should we have Iyer? Should we have Ishan Kishan? Or should we have Surya? Again, I'm assuming that Aksar is right now not part of that 15 because he is injured and we've yet to hear an update on his injury. And after that, India's bowling option starts, where you have Hardik Pandya and Shardul Thakur, who would essentially look to share responsibilities for that fifth bowler, while Jadeja, Bumrah, Siraj, and Kuldeep are your first choice bowlers. And I think I'm also trying to be very clear that we can play only two of our best fast bowlers, which is either Bumrah Siraj or Bumrah Shami or Siraj Shami. I think that is something I'm not able to exactly pinpoint which two of the three, but I've taken these two for now. This is our first 11, where there's 30 overs of pace and 20 overs of spin. There is another combination that I'm also about to make, which you're about to see. So the only minor change that I've made in the second combination is that I've replaced Shardul Thakur with Ravichandran Ashwin. Now, what that does is on wickets that 8 turn, there is, of course, talk of Lucknow having black soil. There's also generally talk about, Pakistan feeling scared to face Afghanistan in Chennai because Chennai is traditionally a turning track. But sometimes it depends which square is being played on and whether that track, looks like a track that will support spin and turn. So, assuming it is a track that supports spin, you'd want to have Ashwin in your side because that slot, the number 8 slot, is a bowling all-rounder slot. And that way, it's either Ashwin or Shardul, depending on conditions. So this is my second stock combination. So if you notice in both these stock combinations, Suryakumar Yadav doesn't figure. Now, if Suryakumar Yadav has to come in, he has to basically come in as a batting option. And if so, the top 4 are anyway locked. So Shreyas Iyer is, or rather the number 5 position is probably where Suryakumar Yadav can come. But he's not your first choice batsman. If he has to replace anybody below that, you're replacing one bowling option, you're taking that bowling option away. So that can actually mean that there's a lot of pressure on the Indian bowling attack. But maybe on certain tracks where your bowlers, you feel 5 bowlers are good enough to get your your opposition out. You're feeling a little more confident, saying, okay, I might as well get Surya in if I'm, very confident of my bowling. But for now, these are my 2 stock 11s. But let's talk about, hey, is that the number 5 slot? Is that a good place to get Surya in? That's our next conversation. So Surya's spot, as we see, is he a good spot at number 5? Is that something that Suryakumar Yadav can target in the side? My sense is the team management will decide to go with either of Shreyas Iyer or Ishan Kishan. And they will go with Shreyas Iyer probably for the first game against Australia because they tend to back him. Of course, he also has 100 more recently against Australia in the second ODI at Indore. But I think if Shreyas Iyer is going to play, there's no way Ishan Kishan would be considered unless and until somebody else has an injury. So I'm assuming that there are three contenders for that one slot. Now, while though Shreyas Iyer and Ishan have both played games, but that's only because somebody in the top order has missed. But in this case, Shreyas Iyer starts. But the question that I have is, in this position, how have all the three fared? What do you think? Do you think either of them has better numbers? Is there a case for Surya? So looking at the way the number 5 position has panned out for India, as much as India would start with Shreyas Iyer, I also wanted to just take a look in terms of how do these numbers stack up. With Surya, his average is about 35.5, strikes at almost run a ball, 98.5, and this is including all his highs and lows. For his first 6-7 ODI games, I think Surya had a lot of 30s and 40s when he started out. And of course, 2022 to 2023 has been fairly bad. He's had those string of 3 ducks. If he had more ducks, he'd probably contend with Agarkar, but thankfully that's not the case. He's come good. He's got a good vein of form coming in the last 2 games that were played against Australia. The first one, of course, at Mohali, and the second one at Indore. But when you look at these numbers with Shreyas Iyer and Ishan Kishan, the numbers aren't too different. Even they average more or less the same. It's just a number here and there. So Ishan averages 34, and in fact, Shreyas Iyer averages just 32, but he has a slightly higher strike rate. But I wouldn't really differentiate so much. Maybe Shreyas Iyer has an edge over the intent factor, but the average is still less. So the other factor to consider between these 3 people, as much as the team management may want to go with Shreyas Iyer in the first game, is to see if there are certain oppositions where the number 5 batsmen contribute more, and basis that you want to decide as to who would be a good choice. Let's go and have a look at that. So the numbers that I have here on this graphic basically talks about how the number 5 batter has performed for most of the teams that are playing in this World Cup. And this is, of course, after the 2019 World Cup. So as much as these 3 people behind me, which is Surya, Ishan, and Surya, and Iyer are the contenders for this spot, especially if you look at number 5, you see that South Africa is very high on these parameters in terms of your average runs per wicket. There's almost 60 runs a wicket. And then you have their strike rates also at 114. So the 4 sides that have this in very high abundance are South Africa, New Zealand, England, and India. So these are the 4 sides that somehow seem to have a fairly mature, settled middle order that is also very high on intent. Unfortunately, Australia is slightly low on the pecking order, because if you look at the sides that are in various shades of green, surprisingly, Sri Lanka is also there, but they're in a shade of orange when it comes to strike rate. But yes, they are there, and I think that's probably put down to their batting prowess with respect to their left hand, right hand. It depends who they basically bring about. But in this particular case, India has an opportunity here to look at this particular data and say that, okay, maybe against sides that are orange in number, which are basically your Bangladesh, Australia, Netherlands, you don't need a very strong number 5 batsman, especially only for your strike rate. You can retain Shreyas Iyer or you could retain Ishan Kishan. But let's say against some of those sides with high intent like South Africa and New Zealand, which are high, especially on your average runs per wicket as well as your on strike rate, then maybe you might think, okay, do I have an X-factor player? So should I invest in Suryakumar Yadav for those matches alone? Maybe, possible question. But you may ask, why only number 5? Can't you get Suryakumar Yadav at 6 or 7? Is 5 not a tad too early? Well, let's go and explore that too. So when we look at the number 6 spot, Hardik Pandya is our choice. But when you look at the difference between Hardik and Surya, there isn't much of a difference. While there is potentially the opportunity, because we've seen someone like Suryakumar Yadav, if he's given the last 10 overs to bat, he bats like a T20 and he takes more chances. So this strike rate that you're seeing here could be far, far higher. But whereas Hardik in the last couple of years has slowed down, he's nowhere near the player that we know him to be, especially at number 6. So, but nevertheless, their averages are the same. But of course, Hardik Pandya comes with the ability to bowl, and he's a very useful bowler. We saw that in the Asia Cup, that wicket of Babar Azam, where the ball landed on the seam and then came inwards. Also, Hardik's preferred bowling position these days after his back injury is to open the bowling right up, such that he's able to extract any kind of swing that is there in the air. But I'm hoping we won't need Hardik in the first few overs. But that's the advantage it comes with. He has a 5 to 6 over bowling ability, though if not 10 completely. But Hardik's looked at least for that. So if Hardik's not playing, in the rare case that India decide that, for 9 games, we have a long World Cup, let's not try and play Hardik in every game. Let's play him in 7 games. A couple of games where Surya can come and add that X factor in a batting lineup at number 6, because in New Zealand you have someone like Glenn Phillips. In South Africa you have somebody like Hendrik Klaasen. So when you have these kind of batsmen against certain oppositions, India doesn't have that X factor after Hardik. So that way, I think Surya and Hardik could be a potential swap if at all the situation comes. But for now, when we look at How are other teams performing in this position? Well, so when we talk about the number 6 slot, if you look at the other teams that have played very well in the last 4 years, you see that South Africa is consistently in the green zone. And they have an average of 45.2, and a surprise entrant to the green zone on the average runs per wicket bit is Bangladesh, 52.1. So Bangladesh that way has has a very strong lower middle order for the simple reason that their top order is not very strong. But keeping that aside, if you look at India, India is not there in that green quadrant except for the strike rate. So this is an opportunity for India to try and see, in the absence of Hardik, if Surya can come against some of the nations that are scoring higher than usual at a number 6 spot, to see if we also need that firepower. I think that's the other opportunity for India to see. But should it come at the cost of Hardik? Yes, that's a debatable question. But can it come at the cost of the number 7 batsman or our next all-rounder? That is our next segment. Number 7. Now, Suryakumar Yadav hasn't played at number 7. Hardik has rarely played at number 7. But our number 7, stock number 7, has always been Ravindra Jadeja. And with Ravindra Jadeja, the expectation is always that, hey, he's there to, help us in a collapse, like that famous 2019 World Cup semi-final, where Jadoo scored 70 odd at far more than run a ball. Now, while his average is exceedingly high, that's also because some of the not outs that he's been part of, his strike rate is kind of low. Because for a number 7 batsman, I expect a slightly higher strike rate. And this is where I feel that all your hitting abilities end as soon as Hardik comes in your stock 11. So are there cases where you could get Suryakumar Yadav for Ravindra Jadeja, but Ravindra Jadeja is a sure shot starter. But there are these mild indications that I'm spotting despite that high average, which I feel could be a point of entry for Suryakumar Yadav. And I'll explain that in the next slide. When you look at that number 7 position across all teams, look at the teams in the green zone. That's India, New Zealand and Australia with respect to the runs per wicket. And also look at their intent. New Zealand and Australia are scoring at more than run a ball. And India are at 92.6 in strike rate, but fairly decent runs per wicket for that number 7 position. And the other 3 teams which are in the yellow zone are England, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. South Africa, unfortunately, don't have that good stocks at number 7, whereas their number 5 and number 6 are doing it for them. But as I said, Ravindra Jadeja's strike rate is about 81. And when you look at this number of 92, obviously somebody else who's played at number 7 has propped up that number. So if you are facing sides that have a very strong number 7 that can prop up totals, you also want somebody to do that. So that way, maybe against sides like New Zealand or Australia, depending on team combination, do you want a Suryakumar swap for Ravindra Jadeja? Is it worth it? Well, there are some patterns I've seen with Ravindra Jadeja post 2022 that to me is slightly concerning, which we will take a look in the next slide. Ravindra Jadeja in ODIs post the World Cup. As I look at it, this is the first part of that data. Very, very good numbers, right? 41 average. And then that number basically increases, especially in the second inning. So it means that even if India has a collapse, Ravindra Jadeja is there to look after India. His strike rate, though, slightly lower for somebody who's batting at, lower down the order. Similarly, I think even in the first innings, while he gets a move on slightly quicker, I don't think he has had enough opportunities of a collapse in the first innings. This more so happens in the second innings. But those are pretty decent averages. Why would you want to even meddle with that player, you may ask? But as I said in the last slide, I see that this is Ravindra Jadeja's numbers post 2022. While his 2019 numbers post 2019 is very good, you look at the fact of his strike rate, 59.3. That's not done. That's strike rate that was in the era of Sunil Gavaskar or Clive Lloyd. You can't really play today's ODI cricket with such lower strike rate, though this whole data is based on a sample of 15 games only, especially 7 batting first and 8 chasing. Jadeja's strike rate is a big worry. And on games where you have strong oppositions, where you want to prop up your number 7, India's batting, especially the firepower, ends at number 6. And that is where I think there's a concern. We saw this playing out even in Palekele during the Asia Cup with the rained out game against Pakistan on September 2nd, where after being 230 odd for 4, India struggled their way to get to 266. India didn't have that firepower or ammunition that someone like a South Africa or an Australia or even England or New Zealand have, especially with their lower middle order. And I think that is a cause for concern. So in grounds and against oppositions where you feel that your main strike bowlers it could be Kuldeep plus maybe one more spinner in Ashwin, or it could be just Shardul Thakur with change of pace deliveries. If you feel that your existing 5 bowlers can get you wickets and you want to prop up your batting, I think that's the case for Suryakumar Yadav to come in. But should it come at the cost of Ravindra Jadeja, who's like a superstar all-rounder? Sure, that question will still linger on. But these are the various scenarios where I see Suryakumar Yadav possibly coming into the Indian side, assuming he's selected for the World Cup. But yeah, that's just my analysis of how I see things. I hope you enjoyed my first English podcast of Cricket Kadaigal. It's so far usually only been in Tamil. Look forward to your feedback. Look forward to your comments in case you feel I've missed out some line of thinking or analysis. Happy to hear feedback, and please stay subscribed to Cricket Kadaigal. See you next time.